Shabbos Daf Kuf Yudal. The first email comes to us from Yitzi from Lakewood. Dear Rebelli, due to the insane traffic that plagues Lakewood, my drives to and from yeshiva can take upwards of an hour. It used to be such a nuisance. Now the traffic is haylig. Without it, I won't finish your shir. With admiration, Yitzi from Lakewood. Second one comes to us from an individual that people are wondering who's this guy on Zoom every single morning, and he reached out to us and he says his name is Liev. He's from South Africa, and he's in the process of Gerus. And he goes through this whole thing and finally says he davens and learns at a kollel, and he's almost at the end of the Gerus process. He's at the finishing line. He plans to become a full-day learner one day after his Gerus, and Be'ezer Hashem, one day I'll be like you, he says. And he's very excited about the community that welcomed him with such open arms. So Hatzlach Gdoilo Liev. We're in the sugya of different medicines that perhaps are brought down in Sefer Refuos from Shlomo HaMelech. For jaundice, the Gemara says you take 2 out of the 3 following ingredients: Alexandria sap, alum, and saffron. 2 out of those 3, it cures jaundice. The only problem is there's a very slight side effect, which is called sterility. The person won't have children afterwards. The question is, how is one permitted to take that? The Mishnah says you can't take it on Shabbos. You can't take that all week long. It says in the pasuk, by bringing a carbon, 4 languages that have to do with castration of an animal, and from the word uva-artzachem, the chem, we learned that it also applies to human beings. It says Gemara, we must be talking about a woman. And according to the Min Daf, it says that a woman is chayiv in pruruvu. We must be talking about an elderly woman or an akara. If you're already saying akara, you could say an akar, a man as well. By a man, drinking this potion, even if he's already an akar, would be asur, because there's a siros after a siros. Even if it's not direct, even if he's taking it for jaundice, it would be asur as an indirect siros. Just like we say that there's chimutz achar chimutz, there's siros achar siros. Meaning, if a person brings a carbon, mincha, and he's not careful and he makes it chametz, he's over. The next person that needs it, the next person that puts it in the oven, makes the shape, they're all over one after another, just like the Torah says by siros, that you're over on detaching, and then you're over on cutting. So the siros after siros. An old man who just can't have children, since he could take some potions and he might be able to, then it would be asur to be mesarasim. The halacha is that you're allowed to cut off the crown of the rooster, the carboilus of the rooster, even though that will cause him to be sterile. Says Gemara, it's not causing him to be sterile. It's not a physical thing, it's a psychological thing. When you remove his crown, then he feels bad and he's in depression, and therefore he doesn't mate. It says in the Mishnah, it's asur to take in vinegar to heal your teeth on Shabbos and spit it out. But if you were to swallow it, that's the norm, and therefore it's mutter. You're allowed to take, there's a trick, you're allowed to take your bread, dip it in vinegar, and eat your bread. That's normal. And as a side benefit, will heal your teeth. Rava initially tried to make a distinction between dipping in or drinking vinegar before the meal, which would be mutter, and that's the norm, and drinking vinegar after the meal. The Gemara says, but there's a concept called hayil. Hayil, since it's mutter before the meal, it should be mutter after the meal. Where do we find this concept? We find it by tefillah and a mikvah on Yom Kippur. On Shabbos, you're permitted to go to the mikvah. Why? Because even though going to the mikvah for tumah fixes the body, so to speak, but perhaps you're going to the mikvah to cool yourself down, and people won't know that you're going for tumah. But on Yom Kippur, you don't have that excuse. You're not allowed to go to the mikvah to cool yourself down. Yet, since it's a mutter to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, hayil, since, therefore it's also mutter to go on Yom Kippur. So since it's mutter to drink vinegar before the meal, it's mutter to drink after the meal. Therefore, we must say that Rava retracted. It seems from the Mishnah that vinegar is good for healing teeth. Yet in the pasuk it says, it's terrible vinegar. It's like smoke in the eyes. It's like a lazy person. Says the Gemara, this pasuk must be referring to unripe grapes, or to a person who doesn't have a wound in his mouth. Yes, for a person who doesn't have a wound in his mouth, it's actually detrimental to drink vinegar because it'll loosen the teeth. Somebody that has a wound in his mouth, it'll heal the wound. A person who has loin pain, he has pain in his loins, it's also for him to use vinegar and wine because that's a refuah. But to soothe it out with oil, that's mutter, that's normal. In those days, people used to anoint themselves with oil. According to Tanakama, if you're a prince, you're allowed to use rose oil. According to Reb Shimon, once princes are mutter in rose oil, then all of Klal Yisrael are mutter in rose oil. All of Klal Yisrael are considered princes, and we cannot distinguish between different groups in Klal Yisrael. In all Hilchos Shabbos, Rav paskin like Reb Yehuda, Shmuel paskins like Reb Shimon. Yet when it comes to this rose oil, Rav said the same thing as Shmuel, but it's not the same thing as Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that rose oil is mutter anywhere and everywhere, since a prince uses it. Rav says in his city that it was the norm to use rose oil, then everybody in his city is allowed to use rose oil, but other places not. And with that we finish the Perek Shmoinish Ratzim. Now we go on to the Perek Ve'elu Ksharim. These are the knots that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos that you're chayav. The nose ring, there are two knots as you see in the picture. The red one that goes in the nose and that stays there forever. It's a permanent knot. That's also, it's a Kesher Shukayama. That's what they did in the Beis Hamikdash when they were tying the uriyos of the Mishkan. Just like you're not allowed to tie a knot, you're not allowed to undo a knot, because in the Mishkan they undid knots when it came to the nets of the Chilazah. The boat has the same kind of thing. It has a small knot that stays there forever, and then you tie the longer rope to it. But every time you undock, every time you move the camel, you undo that long rope. That rope is a D'Rabbanan chiyuv. Rameir says if you can undo a rope with one hand, the knot with one hand, you're not chayav. And the Gemara remains in a subject. What about to do a tie knot, which you can undo with one hand, on the one hand, but on the other hand, no pun intended, it's a really tight knot, and perhaps that's also, and the Gemara remains in a teigu. There are some knots that are mutter l'chatchila. Those are the knots that are there only for one day, such as a woman's shirt that they had two buttons, as you see in the picture. They would tie the right side to the left side and the left side to the right side, but that has to be undone every day. The Gemara is going to say what the chiddush is in each and every one of these cases. The svacha, like a snoot, she had two strings, or to tie a shoe, or a sandal, or a belt, or a bottle of wine, or to cover a pot. Reb Elazar ben Yaakov says they even made a knot to tie to make sure an animal doesn't leave, and with that have a wonderful, wonderful day.